So Malala, thank you so much for being here. It's such an honor for us to have you in our city, Lahore, and in Pakistan, your home. Before we get into anything, I thought it would be nice to introduce you to everybody who's sitting around the table. So Manisha is here to my right. She's a champion MMA fighter and a national gold medalist. She's one half of the mountain twins from Hunza, and her sister Malia is here as well. And they're here in Lahore studying on a sports scholarship. And then we have next to her Behimal. And Behimal, or Bemisal, as everybody knows you on social media, is a multimedia artist and entrepreneur who advocates for body politics through fashion and engagement. Then we have Zara Pirzada. She is a model and an influencer, particularly someone who's known to be vocal on all matters, all issues that really matter to Pakistan. Zara, interestingly, also belongs to the Rafi Pir family, who's sort of responsible for taking art where it is in Pakistan. And then speaking art, we have Abdullah Siddiqui. He's a powerhouse musician and music producer, and he can really be credited as one of the forces who took Coke Studio to a new level of artistry this year and helped shape an entire new area for music in Pakistan.
Congratulations.
Yeah, Pasuri just came as sort of the Google's top, song for 2022.
Amazing.
Yeah. Mehak is a real dynamic fashion force in Pakistan's style game. Some of the most iconic celebrity looks are Mehak's behind, and she comes from a career in media herself. Sunila, sitting at the end, has a vibrant career in media. She's currently the soul and spirit behind Libas Now, where she works on a diversity of topics covering culture, entertainment, subculture, and so on. Maliha, as I mentioned, she's sort of one half of the twins, the dynamic MMA fighter twins, multi-award winning, and she's joining us today. Ghazi Taimur is head of professional education at the Lump School of Education. He's an influencer with a unique focus on music, art, culture, and he also actually does some fantastic side chronicling of Pakistan's culinary traditions. Imama, who you might know, you've met, obviously you work together also, is a quintessential multifaceted personality. Her goal in life is to make science fun for everybody. And she's very passionate about that. Then there's Amani Almas Rashid. She is our quintessential Gen Z force here today, a young feminist student currently enrolled in school. She joins us today on behalf of Sunday Times Digital, which is one of Pakistan's original digital media influencer accounts. And then Sabah, who's here with us today from Karachi. Sabah's a journalist, she's a content strategist, she's a radio show host, she's very passionate about comedy, and she's also an unverified feminist on the internet. Taken from your Twitter bio. That's right. So, before we open up to everybody else, I'd actually like to ask Malala if you'd like to open with a question for everyone.
First of all, I would like to thank you all for your time today, and thank you for keeping all of us entertained and engaged. As you all know, that we consume social media a lot, and it's really important that we have good, informative content for us. It influences all generations, but especially the future generation, Gen Z, millennials, but it's reaching to everyone. So the positive messages and the truthful messages that you are bringing to the screens are really having a huge impact. So thank you for the work that you do. And I'm just really happy that I'm here once again in Pakistan, and I hope that my trips to Pakistan become like a frequent thing, and I want to be more present here. And as you all know, that Lahore is also now sort of my in-laws city. Asar is there. Some of you might know him already, as he was mentioning, because I think this is the thing about Lahore, that you guys all just know each other.
That's right.
When we were on the plane, so like we met 4 or 5 people that sort of, we knew or they knew us or Asar knew them, and I said, this is crazy. So anyway, now I know everybody through Asar. And So I'm really excited for our conversation, happy to like answer anything, and feel free to like add your thoughts as well to those conversations, because some of these are like bigger topics and we don't have the perfect answers, but we have learned something from our experiences that we can share. I think for me, it's like personally, I really want to know more about Lahore. So if you would like to share anything that's, that we shouldn't miss while visiting Lahore. So any food, restaurant, any like tourist site. Yes.
सब हाजिर हैं इस काम के
ठीक
लिए।
है, ठीक है.
So yeah, genuinely any recommendations?
I mean, you
पसंद
should.
क्या है?
What are
like
you
to
looking
eat?
for? What के देसी खाना है या फिर?
Which is like I have मैं बहुत पहले आई थी like 10-11 years ago. Now I'm here again. So it's been a long time. The only thing I've seen was probably Minar-e-Pakistan and Badshai Mosque. So that's my experience so far.
Maybe you could go around exploring more of the अंदरून शहर. उधर आपको खाने पीने की भी चीजें मिल जाती हैं, देसी नाश्ता and all of that.
Arif Chatkhara.
That's what I was thinking.
Nobody said it.
It's true. Pakistan.
Anonymously decide हो गया.
Even if you want to stay in over the weekend, मैं कहूँगी हाजी की निहारी ज़रूर मंगवाइएगा. It is a great Sunday morning tradition,
ठीक है.
and it brings families closer together.
Just keep a hajmola on
like
side.
Side.
Perfect suggestions. But like, एक can't try ऐसा ज़रूर.
ठीक है. नहीं, I'll make sure सारी safety measures are taken.
So before we get into something, I just wanted to ask Malala, it would be great to hear from you on what does the Malala Fund do and what is the focus of your work in Pakistan particularly?
So Malala Fund is now a global organization that is based in Nigeria, Pakistan, USA, and UK. And we support activists in 9 countries, including Pakistan, India, Nigeria, Ethiopia, Brazil. These are the countries where we have the highest number of girls out of school, or we have the biggest gender disparity in access to education. And we know that this is an issue that is not just faced here in Pakistan or parts of Pakistan, but it is a global issue. Access to education, is something that people talk about in other places as well. And like around the world, there are 130 million girls who do not have access to schools. And you might have heard my story already, but because of the extremism in Swat Valley from 2007 to 2009, I became an activist at age 10 or 11, and I did as much as I could at that time to raise awareness about what was happening. And my tool at that time was my story. And I knew nothing about advocacy and how to lead campaigns, but I knew that one thing that I know that is true is my own story. And so I shared my story, and I at that time we were doing protests and we were doing campaigns, etc., engaging with the local activists, but it was again like media that really helped us in sending the message. So I was blogging for BBC, and I volunteered for documentaries as well. So media at that time took the message to everyone. But now I want to work for all girls who do not have access to education, and this foundation works with girls as well. We have a platform called Assembly, which is a newsletter for girls by girls. So we are we have created this platform which is led by girls and it's for girls, really making sure that girls' voices are at the center of everything that we do. And when we go to these rooms and gatherings and people talk about girls, but girls are usually not there in those rooms. It's not that they can't speak, it's not that they don't know about the problems, they do. They probably know it better than anyone else in that room. It's really important to have girls' voices in those rooms and to give more visibility to how they themselves are actually becoming activists and addressing those problems. And just as my father and I were activists in Swat Valley, so our activist model is to support activists in these 9 countries who are advocating for girls' education. They are doing research work, they are doing advocacy for policy changes, and they're also promoting digital education, and that's the work that we have been doing in Pakistan since I think 2017. We have a group of activists who we support. We also are working with the government, so we have a public-private partnership together with other organizations as well. So really bringing all the stakeholders together, which is really important for bringing a systemic change that is impactful, that is also sustainable in the long term. And we are working on STEAM education, and our goal is to make it available in 13,000 government schools. So I think my answer is very long. I was told not to give long answers, but that's sort of a summary of the work that we do. But I'm here to learn more and understand how we can be more effective in our work.
And Amani, I'd like to hear from you, because I believe you wanted to address a question on education specifically.
So how do you propose that we tackle an issue such as female education in Pakistan, where it's so vast, and complex? And also, how should the media, for example, Sunday Times, address and highlight this issue?
As I mentioned, these issues are complex, and you rightly identified it, that we talk about supply side issues and demand side issues. We talk about social norms, lack of infrastructure, lack of quality teachers, safety while going to schools, transportation while going to school. So all of these factors play a role in why girls do not have access to schools. And today we had a meeting with some girls from a high school, and those girls were again highlighting these problems, that many of them, even the journey from home to school can be a big challenge for them. And then when they're in that building, there could be the issue of lack of quality teachers, or even subject teachers, that they sometimes do not even have teachers for sciences or other subjects like that. And there's lack of communication between parents and teachers to engage them and make sure that the children's education is a priority at home as well. So because these issues are so contextual and so they are very local as well, it's important to work with local activists in those areas. And that's why the model that we have is that we work with local activists everywhere in Pakistan, including Sindh, South Punjab, KP, and other areas. We do the same in other countries as well, like in the north of Nigeria. We work with indigenous communities in Brazil, because we look at data, but then also we are like, let's look at it more closely and see where exactly do we see the highest number of girls out of school. Is it in a specific province? Is it in a specific community? Is it connected to their ethnicity, their language, or any other background? And it's the work of local activists that can really transform those communities. Their voices are really powerful because it's understood in the local context. So that has been my learning so far. And I hope that through local level activism combined with the global level activism, we would be able to bring more change. But I think what can the Sunday Times do? I think really engage with the education activists and with the girls, and hear their voices directly, because the more we hear about it, the more we understand it, and then we would be better equipped and prepared to address those problems.
And Zara, I believe you also had a question on education.
I did. I just wanted to preface by saying what an absolute honor it is to meet you, and thank you for sharing your time with us. Influencer creative communities are not often taken seriously in situations or issues such as education. So thank you so much for your time. And my question is, what can we do on individual and community, creative community levels, to increase access for women to education? For example, you shared your story. Stories are important. What can we do? What kind of stories can we tell to help people become comfortable with the idea of women in education?
I think that's a really good question. And as I mentioned earlier, really engaging with women and girls is important. Bringing their stories to screen. When more and more people will hear their personal stories, it will help them to understand these issues better. Because right now you look at reports and it's just numbers and figures, and it's really difficult for us sometimes to process that. In Pakistan, 12 million girls do not have access to education. But what does that mean? What does that look like in a community? What does that mean for a girl who is facing some challenges already at home? She has pressure from her family that she should get married soon, or she's told that she cannot go to school after grade 8, or she has to do well in her school or in her exams, otherwise she would be told to leave her school. So when you hear these stories, you realize how the life of one individual is impacted, and that then helps you to understand how not only those girls are losing so much in their lives, but how our community, our whole society loses when girls do not have access to school. So it's a huge economic and social loss as well. When you look at research work, again, if all girls around the world have access to quality and safe education, it would add up to $30 trillion to the world economy. So it's a huge sustainable investment. It helps us strengthen the economy, reduce poverty, be better prepared against climate change, and be in a better place to protect and defend our human rights as well. So education has, on a bigger scale, it has so many advantages, and also on an individual level, it has so many benefits for women and girls and our whole community.
On how to challenge authority, how to build leadership, inculcate a culture of leadership within students. So my question is, how can teachers and how can school leadership basically play a role in inculcating that culture of leadership within young students? And how can they encourage them to challenge the authority that's being reinforced on students?
So I think firstly, we definitely need to invest in the quality of teaching, and we have to work with teachers because they are a key instrument of improving the quality of education in schools. I personally don't have the expertise on how the quality of teaching can be improved. It's up to the experts to do the work. But I can say that as a student, I have been heavily influenced by my own teachers. From my primary school to secondary up to university, they inspire you each and every day. They motivate you to be in that classroom and to enjoy what you are learning. And one thing that teachers can encourage students that can be really powerful is to ask questions. In our classrooms, we have to ensure that we are encouraging students to ask questions about anything, about the subject, about bigger problems, and make sure that that we don't try to discourage them in our response, where students are told that the question was silly, or the question is not something that can be addressed. And really, what we should be doing is respond in a way that they become even more curious, and that could be a moment in their life where they go forward and become, experts in that field, where they become sort of the future decision makers, the future leaders, the future scientists, innovators. I think that's where creativity and innovation, everything begins. So that's something that I think teachers can definitely support more.
And Imama, that's interesting perhaps to you also, because you're in education and in science, which is, if I'm not mistaken, not traditionally associated with girls. So it'd be good to hear from you.
When we talk about women in science, हमारा एक काम का बहुत बड़ा मकसद ये होता है कि why is it that when you think of a scientist, and we can do this practice अभी छोटी सी, if you think of a scientist, आपको कोई lab coat में बुड्ढा बाबा with crazy hair, or Einstein or maximum Newton, बस yeah, so that's what you picture, right? So हमारे काम का एक बहुत बड़ा मकसद ये है कि ख़वातीन को, लड़कियों को उन amazing ख़वातीन साइंसदान से introduce कराना, who can be role models for them, and not just, again, white women who are doing good in science, women from Asia, women like Arfa Karim, Tasneem Zahra, Nargis Mawalwala, who are local heroes, but like हमारी बच्चियों को उनके नाम भी नहीं पता. यहाँ पे what I will ask is, I work with Malala Fund, and I'm lucky in that way कि मुझे इतनी अच्छी opportunity मिली है. I do know students who want to be activists, and they probably don't understand what being an activist means, but I see that spark, and it's up to me as their teacher to sort of guide them in that direction. And what support can the fund provide to such young women who would like to get into activism or who would like to associate themselves to the Malala Fund? I do know there's the girl program,
Yes.
But that has certain requirements, and I understand why, because वो एक specific program है. But is there a more informal channel of just connecting to Malala Fund in a certain way where I can encourage my students to be activists?
No, 100%. And girls already do their activism. Sometimes they don't realize that they are. If you find discomfort with certain norms in society and you try to talk about it, you try to challenge it, that's where activism begins. Because you chose not to remain silent about it, you chose not to let it go. And how you do that is, again, it's contextual. Sometimes people think about activism as big rallies on the streets. That could be activism, but it's not limited to that. You can use social media, you can use the school community, you can use other groups as well that you can engage, and you can raise awareness. You can also engage with your local politicians, MNAs, MPAs as well. You can write to them, you can call them. So that's another way as well. So I think it's really just raising more awareness about it. And again, like just giving them accessible toolkits. I think that could help. And that's so easy to organize. Like there are so many organizations out there who have developed these toolkits for girls and for all children to become activists in their community. And as hard as it sounds, it's not that hard. I think it's pretty easy. It's like if you see an issue and you said, this is not okay, I'm not comfortable with this, and I'm sure other people are also not comfortable with this. Right. You start talking about it, even with a few individuals, or you start talking to a bigger community through social media, through other means, and there it starts. In terms of the impact of activism, initially you may not see the response, you may not hear back from many people, you may not see a change in policy for many, many years, but one thing that I have learned in my activism is that even if it's slow, even if it's a slow response, and even if it's a slower change, it's still worth it, because if we all stop, like things will remain as they are. So it's, we're still doing better. So in terms of like the impact of activism and advocacy, people may not even say something to you back, but you're already influencing and changing their minds, because you have exposed them now to new perspectives, new stories that they had not heard before, that they had not envisioned before.
I think that's a wonderfully inclusive kind of definition of activism, because I think a lot of us on this table experience activism at the moment as a very different kind of activism, that unless you're on the streets or unless you're very, very vocal about something or you're taking a very public stand, you're not an activist. So I actually think your definition is really nice for me personally, and very affirming.
Yeah. And I'll also like to add that you also become role models to other people, especially the younger generation. So when they see young women becoming like mountaineers, or they are becoming scientists, or
MMA fighters.
MMA fighters, or like, because that little girl, she is still learning from society. She's still looking around, watching TV, reading books, and she's making a judgment about what she can do and what she cannot do. So when she looks at amazing women like you, she says, I can do all of these things. And when she sees amazing men who are talking about equality, who are telling, who are making sure that they are not maintaining and sustaining patriarchy, like that has such a huge influence on the future generations, including boys as well. They need to be inspired by women and men who are older than them. So it's really like, they are all like looking up to us. We don't even realize, but they are looking up to us. So how we present ourselves can, have a huge impact. Sometimes we don't look around as much inside our families because we're so focused on the work we do outside, but inside your homes as well, sometimes you have to reflect on how you are communicating these messages indirectly to your family members, to your brothers, to your sisters, to your parents. And it's not easy, but like that's the hardest place to begin it with. But if you can make it happen there,
difficult conversation.
yeah. Like I'm very strict with my brothers because I want to make sure that if I am challenging the patriarchy, it has to start at home. Yeah. Like your brothers.
How do they feel about it?
They're very supportive. I think the youngest one is because he learned things, he saw everything from a very young age, so he was exposed to it very early. And for him, like these things are very normal. Like yes, a woman can do anything. He's like, why are you even asking these? Why are you talking about this? And for their generation, they're like, why was it even happening? And we are like, oh, long story, I don't know where to start. But I said, you guys are
Just
right.
read my book.
And I think that gives us hope again. But sometimes with my older brother, he in the past he used to say, he used to get angry. He said, I want to protect my sister. And I said, like, your sister can protect yourself. Like, I know you're doing it with a kind heart, but like, it's really important that women, find their own voice and they make, like, it's about their choices. Like, let them make those decisions for themselves. And once I make that decision, you can stand by my side, right? Once you know what decision I have made, you can stand by my side, and I'll call you to help when I know what help I need. So
that's great. We're going to speed it up a little bit because I think we're tight on time. But Abdullah, I'd love to hear from you on arts and education.
Yeah. So I mean, I've been thinking a lot about education, particularly girls' education lately, just because I approach this as as a musician and as a producer, and more so a curator. So it's often my job to be, selecting artists for various projects and, different things. And the one thing that keeps occurring to me is that there is an enormous disparity between male artists and female artists in the music industry. Because if you even look at, like Spotify's numbers on the most streamed artists of 2022, it was all, it was all men. And so then I sort of, start to get at the why of that, right? And I start to realize that I think maybe it's because men are able to create content that connects to people because they have a lot of institutional freedoms, right? And so then you can sort of trace that all the way back to a lack of arts education, right? I think that's one of the things that is a great equalizer in, in the Western world and other countries, where if you have all students learning about different areas of art and about things like music at a young age, that kind of levels the creative playing field, and so then that can kind of cancel out a lot of the institutional disparities. And but when I talk about that, I feel like a lot of people's sentiment towards that is, okay, the state of education here is so, it's in a bad state, and so how can you prioritize? How do you find space to prioritize arts and music education? So I want to hear your thoughts on that. Like, is there space for that?
So I studied in Pakistan till class 9, and then after that I was moved to the UK for my treatment, etc. And when I joined the school there, I did my GCSEs and my A-levels there, and then my university as well. And when I went to that school, they were showing me around these different classes, and there was biology, physics, chemistry. I was familiar with that. Maths, English, I was good at that. In maths, I was actually better. I said, I've done all of these topics and even more. So that's something we are good at. Sciences as well. But then they, they had classes on physical education, art, music, cooking, and textiles, and so many other things, drama. And I was so surprised that these are also subjects. I was promoting education, but I did not know that education is not just about sciences and maths and English. It is much broader than that. It's actually giving more choices to children to learn about all of these different areas and then decide for themselves what they want to do, and making sure that we prioritize all of these subjects equally. So if you are like an artist, if you are a painter, if you are a musician, if you are a chef, any of these things, like these things are important, and that's like how we make the whole society outside. So it's really preparing you for the world outside. So I do believe that we need to really broaden the definition of education in Pakistan as well. Like there's a lot that needs to be added. And I think another subject is critical thinking that has to be considered as well.
It would be good now maybe to shift the conversation a little bit out of education. And
I'll allow that for once.
If that's okay with your
Yes,
permission.
it's okay.
And maybe talk a little bit about some of the subjects that have come up with Abdullah, particularly gender roles, inclusivity, stereotypes. And I'd like to speak to Maliha and ask you to put forward your thoughts.
It's you, ma'am. So my question is, what does a man play in a female life when she is going to do a known, familiar or traditional thing in a society?
Like the role
new
of,
thing.
Like your father's role in your life, or
there's a lot that men can do in supporting women. They can become activists for women's rights. I often share the story of my father because he was a very vocal activist for gender equality, and we knew that no one could challenge patriarchy more than men themselves, because they speak with men eye to eye and tell them that this doesn't give me any honor, to stop the sisters and daughters and wives in our family from opportunities, from these basic human rights like the right to education, the right to work, the right to health, the right to go to a doctor, the right to go and walk in a park or go shopping. So men have to be activists as well. They can also support other women, women who are doing activism, who are stepping forward and just taking a big step in their life where they're challenging a system, where they're taking a bigger position. They are already like making some sort of history, like we are usually still like the first in a certain field and the first to reach to a certain position. So the support of men can be really critical because it sends a message to other men and women that this is something that we all should celebrate, that we all should be proud of. This is something beneficial for the community. And lastly, I would say that sometimes men have to just take a step back, allow women to educate themselves. Like we can speak, we can talk, we can do things ourselves. So if you have taken our spot, like please,
And Biha Mal, it would be good to hear from you on, you're a real champion for inclusivity, body positivity. So it'd be good to hear from you.
My question is, fashion and media are two incredibly powerful tools, as we all know. They're what we base our conceptions around regarding anything around us, right? So there's a vast disparity within the fashion industries here in Pakistan and those overseas. My concern is that while we strive to draw inspiration from major fashion houses like Vogue and Gucci and whatever, we leave out the inclusive side of it completely. Can inclusivity be imposed or made a requirement specifically in Pakistan? And how does one go on about that?
I think that is a tough question. I think we do need more and more people in the decision-making rooms. Sometimes inclusivity is just limited to the display, what you see and what you show. I'm not saying that is not important at all. It still makes a huge difference. But in terms of true inclusivity, we have to ensure that women and people from all backgrounds are given the space at every level. I can give an example of this in the work that I do for girls' education. When you go to these big conferences, everyone is talking about girls' education and about the future of children, but they're all in their like 50s. Children are not actually in the room, not even like those who are in, in their teenage or in their 20s. And sometimes like I am the one person that's invited there. And recently, I know, but it was okay for a while, and now I've turned 25. So I have to remind everyone that, sorry, I don't tick that box anymore. It's really important to engage them in the whole process as well, not just in the final ceremony where speeches are given. And for me, it's really important that I reflect on the work that I personally do at Malala Fund. So when we initiated the girls program and we started Assembly, which is like a newsletter for girls, where girls around the world are sharing their stories. In all of these initiatives, we make sure that girls are just there through the whole process from start to end. And we take in their input and make sure that it's part of our strategy, it's part of our planning and how we execute all of that. So I think it's the same for inclusivity as well. Like when we make a commitment towards inclusivity, we have to be honest and truthful about it and make sure that we are bringing this at every level. But I would love to hear from you as well, like what are your thoughts on this?
Honestly, I think I'm one of the first plus size models in Pakistan. She's one of them. And it's very tokenized, it's very performative.
Yeah.
Because you'll only see it around Women's Day and just if they want to make a point, and then the rest of the year you're not earning at all. And it's been very difficult. And the thing is that on my platform, what I specifically do is I just talk about body image a lot. And I hear like thousands of stories every day of just young women to like mums and grandmoms coming in and telling me, हम जाते हैं जोड़ा खरीदने और वो कहते नहीं आपका तो साइज मिलेगा ही नहीं. क्यों? जब आपका कस्टमर है, जब आपका है demand, तो why? What is the issue? And then the thing that I just don't understand is, and I've spoken to so many fashion industries here, for fashion brands, so many houses here, कि आप वही कह रहे हो ना, आप वो कोई copy करना चाह रहे हो, आप बढ़ना चाह रहे हो, that big brand artist, well, they've done it. There's now like every sort of color, there's body types, there's, people of all sorts now representing. और आपकी representation नहीं होगी तो आप नीचे किस तरह दिखाओगे कि हाँ, you can do that too. It's so important and it's so lacking. But thank you for...
And Sunila, on stereotyping, I mean, picking up in the same sort of area, I'd like to hear from you.
Stereotyping, I mean, I would like to share my experience. When I was in the newsroom, it's like a male-dominated place.
Right.
It was very difficult to just, navigate through that because when I started my career here, I was very young and I was one of the first female editor in the newsroom. So, just making my place there, it was very, very difficult. But then I think I did a fairly good job. So did you. And so did you. So, I mean, I wanted to know from your end that, how difficult was it for you to navigate such stereotypes and social taboos in the West, about this region, considering, all the ground realities jo aapko pata hai. So I would want to know more about that, and how did such stereotyping hinder conversations there, and how did you talk past that?
I received a lot of support from around the world, and people read my book, people followed my story, they support Malala Fund as well. But sometimes when you are in those rooms, you hear that people have made a judgment, a very generalized judgment, that people in Pakistan, do not know anything, or it's, all of these issues are just present in every house, and you have to like remind everyone that we are talking about numbers, and we're talking about what's happening in majority in most of the places. We're sharing figures as well. That this percentage of girls do not have access to school. This percentage of girls are forced into marriages. For instance, like, only 13% of girls make it to grade 9 in Pakistan. So these are the figures that's really important. But it does not mean that we make a judgment about each and every family and individual. These are averages. So maybe it just requires a bit of understanding of statistics. That is an interesting field to explore. But also, I think I personally knew that when I present myself, I carry a lot of messages with me when I go and show myself in that room. And I always present myself as a proud Pakistani and remind everyone that there are so many Pakistanis there who, whose names are there visible. There are incredible women who have done activism for the past many, many decades, who have led these movements for gender equality, for the rights of so many communities and individuals. So it's really the work of those incredible women, that has inspired me and many of you here. So we really follow their footsteps, and we are really grateful to them still. They have changed so much for us, and we just have taken it for granted. So the other thing is, I think social media again plays a critical role in this, that the visibility of more brown faces can actually change a lot of these things without us even talking about it. And I would say that media and social media has already changed a lot of that. People are now connecting with Pakistani communities through TikTok, through Instagram, through Twitter, and they are seeing that, okay, we sort of are very similar than we actually think, and we have a lot more in common, and it helps us connect with each other better. Yeah, so I think again, influencers and social media activists can play a huge role in this to send that message.
Well, picking up on the role of media and representation, you've gone into production yourself. And Mehak, I think you had a question particularly.
I wanted to know what some of your upcoming film projects are and what are the kind of stories that you would want to tell through film.
We need to make sure that we are using all the opportunities that are in front of us to share our message. I realized that the world of NGOs is a good one, and it has a lot of benefits, and it can contribute to a structural level change. But at the same time, I need to explore other areas as well, from writing to speaking to TV content as well. So that's when I started my production company, Extracurricular. I was once asked, oh, so you started to do something different than education. I said, no, extracurricular is still part of education. So I said, I've not gone off track. I said, I'm still committed to my mission. But it's really making sure that we have more diverse voices coming together and telling us stories, and really giving a chance to those who are oftentimes ignored or not considered important, and making sure that we hear diverse perspectives from people from all around the world, especially from Pakistan and South Asia. And it's not just about the visibility of women on the screen, but also off the screen as well. So making sure that we work with women directors and women writers, and just bringing attention to more stories from Pakistan. So we have some projects in progress now. We're working on this documentary on a matriarchal society on this island in South Korea. Yeah, so it's really exciting. I was I want to know more about this, because why not bring matriarchy? No, I'm kidding. Equality for all. But it's really interesting because it's the women who are the sea divers. They earn for the family, they feed the families. But it's a really interesting story. I won't give many spoilers.
Very cool. Sabah, I'm leaning into you. I'm going to lean into you for something fun, something light.
So all these smart questions, they took from me, obviously. I was have it, you guys need it. So my questions are not at all along that. No, actually hearing all the questions, I was why would they save the dumbest for last?
No.
Well, my question was, I just wanted to know, well, first of all, do you follow any of us on social media?
I'll follow you right now.
Yeah. first of all, you're welcome. And then I'm wondering, like, what is something that makes you laugh every time without fail?
I think my dad said it.
Yeah.
Did you say it?
Really? Oh, that's so cute.
What was it? I didn't hear.
Her husband.
Oh.
Every time?
Yeah, but I make him laugh as well. We both make each other laugh. Yes, I guess so.
I can ask.
Yeah. You have
I
another
think the
question.
funny.
Oh no, please keep going.
I really enjoy funny content. So as a child, I used to watch dramas, and I was told off so many times by my mom. And I watch movies, I watch cartoons, and I still watch movies. And I survived the university time through watching The Big Bang Theory. Literally.
Do you follow the meme pages on Instagram?
I follow meme pages as well. I just watch, the TikTok videos or the Instagram videos, the reels, because it keeps us entertained and engaged, and we learn as well, and we laugh and giggle. So.
For dramas, funny ones, I have to ask. I ask everyone this. Sorry, guys. Did you ever watch the Annie Kyagi Bharat series by any chance? It was a very funny one.
Or Dolly Kyagi.
Yeah, Dolly Kyagi. I would highly recommend. They're great ones. Okay. My next intellectual question was, what were literally, guys? How could you do this to me?
Look, somene's got to break it. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I was very invested. I wanted to know what literally they are. They're all gonna unfollow me. Their validation is what keeps me going. What were like your literally, guys, what were your songs this year that you really liked? Any Coke Studio favorites or things like that?
We all love Coke Studio songs.
Everyone's like,
I think the beauty of Coke Studio is that they bring all these cultural folk songs together and make sure that everyone hears those songs with some new beats and instruments, mixed together. So it's more fun and more entertaining to listen to those songs. And you are really also like helping us celebrate these incredible artists who, we all need to acknowledge them. We all need to thank them. Yeah,
for sure.
Which one did you have on repeat? Like, what was your repeat song? This is my favorite of the year.
There was like from Coke Studio
or any
song. Any.
Make someone.
Fair Abdullah song.
Yeah. Which one? Yeah, Suri, everyone is listening to it. So
I would love to see Malala's Spotify rap.
Yeah. How was your Spotify?
Actually, yeah.
Okay, this is so silly, but I don't use Spotify. Like I have it, but
Spotify.
I shouldn't say this, but if I get a deal, then fine. Then I'll get loyal.
Now we know who the real influencer.
Taylor Swift did.
Yeah, exactly.
Amani, you were in Taylor Swift's what? 0.5% of listeners.
Nice.
Yeah, I love it. So, and I'm gonna close, if that's possible, with Manisha and ask you.
So my question is that you know about the literacy rate of Hunza or Gilgit-Baltistan. It's pretty much high as compared to all over the Pakistan. And so what you think, ma'am, what's the difference कि हम वो नॉर्दर्न एरिया होकर इतना बैकवर्ड इलाका होकर भी पूरे पाकिस्तान के कंपैरेटिव वो उसमें ज़्यादा लिटरेसी रेट है एज़ कम्पेयर टू ऑल ओवर द पाकिस्तान क्या चीज़ मिसिंग है जो हम नहीं कर सकते हैं कि उसी की तरह हम अपनी लिटरेसी रेट हाई करें और ओवरऑल कि हुंजा में ये है कि देयर इज़ नो डिफरेंस बिटवीन gender. Everyone is doing their own works and everything is similar. Even take our example. जब हमने स्टार्टअप लिया था, there is a lot of stereotypes और हमें बहुत बुली किया जाता था. कहते थे कि it's a male sports and how you two girls are doing this and you can't do this. और यही चीज़ थी कि यही चीज़ हमें push करती थी कि हमने करना है. And the second thing is that कि पाकिस्तान में ये एक दूसरी stereotype है कि मैम those who are doing the sports they can't run their studies and those who can run their studies they can't do sports. हमने अपनी pre-engineering की है with our sports and now we both are students of international relations in Lahore Gerizan University and we are studying on full-based scholarship. So this is my question: is that what is missing in our education system?
I think you answered both your questions already. The answer to your first question is actually not limiting people based on their genders. Because when you tell someone that you are a boy, so you can only do these things, and you are a girl, you can only do these things, I think that's where the problem comes. Problem is not actually the gender, like, the problem is not that, but it's like how we define it, how we then interpret it, then how do we limit people based on their gender. I think that's where the problem comes. To tell girls that they cannot go into a certain field, they cannot study, and their life should be decided by the social norms or by some members in their family. So that has to change, like in every part of Pakistan. And then the second one, where we need to challenge people on, again, some more stereotypes where they're telling girls or just children in general that they have to really pick between sports and studies, arts and studies. I think you have answered that by showing them what you have done. So your story is really powerful here. And I think it's really like encouraging children to follow their dreams, and whether that is a combination of the academics plus sports plus other field, or it's they pick one side and go and make a career there. So it's really like just support them and make sure that society is more welcoming to them, that their profession is acknowledged, it's celebrated, they're paid well as well. So there's exactly like
And the one thing is,
yes,
ma'am, I just thank you so much.
You can call me Malala. I mean, I feel so much pressure when you call me.
Inside, thank you so much. As we follow you, our mentor, or as our inspiration. Once एक दफ़ा आपने हमारी स्टोरी अपनी स्टोरी में आपने शेयर की थी इंस्टाग्राम पे, and that day is just
and I love your story, and happy to share it again and again, because you have done so much. So more and more people need to hear this. Stories are really powerful. Whether we share stories through social media, through articles, or through TV content, stories can really change our perspectives. So the more stories we have, the more visibility that we have, the more diversity that we see on our screens, on the TV content, it will help us change a lot of minds and a lot of these stereotypes.
Literally, उसी दिन हमने 3 hours हमने extra training की थी.
Exactly. If you need another day, feeling a bit lazy or thoda sa wo,
But thank you everybody. Thank you, Malala. I think it's such an honor for all of us to be here and
I want to share
everyone's. Please.
So basically, आज आपसे मिलने के प्रेशर में मैंने आज अपने बाल भी बनाए.
नोटिस कर रही हूँ आपका ब्लोटर बहुत अच्छा है.
मैंने खुद नहीं किया था, तो I said I need to make sure I look good for the content. So you can give me more tips. नहीं को ट्रेनिंग की जरूरत है.
None of us got blow dries to meet you today. We even carpool.